A Mobster's Midrash by Michael Diamond. Finale, Chapter 8, Armageddon. No one could shake the vision of the ectoplasmic cow. Frickin' Grigstown ghost cow. I suspect the hand of Isis in all things bovine, all the way back to the golden calf incident. Even some of the shit that plagued thieves toward the end of their run. Geez. Poor beleaguered stoners haven't even begun to get their show on the road when the cursed cow gives them all a protracted case of the heebie-jeebies. The whole bunch has given Wiggy the hairy eyeball, and he of all people ought to know what goes around comes around, being in the prophetic utterance biz and all. Not an auspicious beginning for a new cooperative enterprise, but those are the initial conditions, the seeds of the future. The strange attractor for the whole frickin' basin of attraction, into which is poured the metaphysical soup to cook the kings. All in the service of a triumphal boogie through the gates of Atlantic City for the Battle of the Bands, Armageddon. The artisanal pot business pays big dividends. So the next level of doing and being, of course, is to haul their ragtag band into the limelight. Like I said, everybody's a little edgy. So when Hades shows up at a board meeting wearing the pickle haub on his head, Wiggy flips his wig. "What the fuck, H? Is that supposed to be funny?" the suddenly very focused space cadet demands of his corpulent friend. Hades, quite mellow and primo Mary Jane, gives his pal a cross-eyed smile with a very wet raspberry on top. Wiggy loses it entirely, strides over to Mr. Hades' recumbent, and snatches the offending garment from his head. He glowers, "Have you forgotten rule number 1 of the tribe head?" Hades continues to effect a series of goofy smiles and facial distortions, none of which seem to quite fit. "And I quote," says Wiggy, "let us always remember to forget the Malabites. I repeat, what the fuck?" Hades summons a few distant neurons to snap to attention. "Well, I guess I forgot to remember to forget them. Come on, Wiggy, I didn't mean nothing." He mugs good-naturedly. The big man pauses and gives a sheepish, puzzled look, cocks his head to the side and muses. "Then again, maybe nothing's exactly what I did mean." Wiggy is having none of Hades' foolishness. In a stern but even tone, he pronounces in the hearing of all in attendance, "I think it's time for you to unseat yourself and rotate." Hades admires the clever turn of phrase, always a sucker for the adroitly implied obscenity. "Well then, okay, who's up to bat next?" the fat man queries with a surprising degree of equanimity whilst withdrawing from the chair. Let me note here that there was no bloodshed, no brawl, not even a whole lot of hollering. The story has been way overblown in the music racks, whispered down the lane, you know. It's entirely possible that Hades is simply tired of the chair and engineers his own unseating. No dummy. Jag, however, feels compelled to stand by his mentor in all things jocular, as he has a bit of a deficit in that department himself, geek that he is. So he is not about to step into the breach. Uncle clears his throat. "Being as I am the one amongst us most experienced in palace coups, I guess I should take a crack at it. Okay, boys?" Much mumbling, nodding, grunting, and gesticulating by the mixed multitude at the table, and the measure is passed, the first of many regime changes for the as yet unnamed kings. The good news about Uncle is he's ready for action. "So, the first order of business is an official name for our band, right?" He stares around the table. A chorus of "Hear, hear," and "There, there," and "Huzzah," and "Outstanding," and "You go, guy." Uncle is suitably impressed with his own leadership ability, tables the naming bit, and proceeds to lay out a multi-pronged plan of attack, most of which involves bribery, intimidation, and sabotage. A true guerrilla war on all other contenders, thin out the competition. The mouth, for his part, is the obvious man for that particular job. "Yo, Uncle, leave all that to me. Me and the Lonesome Pine Barrens boys, know how to hit 'em where it doesn't show," says the punk from the pines. "We can put a hurt on whoever yous tells us to." A notable unease spreads among the farmers and the farmers' wives, and even the other Tokarians are a mite uncomfortable with this dark turn in the conversation. A pall falls over the assembly. Uncle, normally good at reading the room, puts both palms on the table, leans in, cocks an eyebrow. You can't fry the whole Jersey omelet without breaking up a few gigs, to mix a metaphor. A chorus of moans and groans disrupts the tension for a minute. Saul pipes up. So, what about a name? I think we should choose something simple yet distinctive like the judges, only grander. Like the Dukes, aim high. Huldy, JJ's wife, pragmatic woman, family of North African mystics, clear-eyed and kindly, turns her obsidian eyes to Peace Bubba, a.k.a. Saul, chief among the Tokarians, and says flatly, Why not throw caution to the wind and call yourselves the gods? Would that be shooting too high for the likes of you, eh? Why not? Huldy, her own version of prophecy honed to a fine ironic edge, possesses the power to read auspices in eggs, ovomancy. The rural people all come to her on the sly, not wanting to appear superstitious. Saul has the good grace to blush, but Uncle blusters on. Very funny, Huldy. I'll have you know we're all monotheists, stereotheists, or atheists on this bus. However, you may have something there. We are the frickin' philosopher kings of Mercer County, right, fellas? Uncle scans the table for consensus. Cries of huzzah and arg and right on and pip pip, as well as a general hubbub of animal noises, kazoos, and whistles. Yes, pipes up Farmer Zed, caught up in the general hilarity. The frickin' kings of Zion is what we are. An unexpected silence grips the table as the name takes hold with much stroking of chins, pursing of lips, and raising of eyebrows. So it is that Zed has the last word, a precedent he shall reprise in the coming weeks. 49 weeks, to be precise. That's how much time they have to organize, rehearse, and rev up this clown car of men who would be kings before the big gig, Armageddon in Atlantic City. Uncle and Peace Bubba get to work right away, putting pen to paper, and churn out a handful of truly memorable tunes. Seems all Saul is particularly inspired by his main squeeze, Sheepy, an exotic Yoruba priestess from Philly. Writes some pretty hot stuff, if I do say so myself. I show some of it to Sandy, and he agrees. Uncle's pieces are more stereotypical gangster, modern-day cowboy shoot-'em-ups, but he does have a recognizable style, that high, lonesome sound. They just might succeed in spite of themselves. The other, more unsavory business of disabling the competition at each of the qualifying events to Armageddon, the lesser venues, local firehouses and tractor pools and the like, falls strictly under Uncle's purview. The mouth, a.k.a. opener, a.k.a. yip, a.k.a. Ippolito, has that covered. A badly timed fire siren, a malfunctioning tractor headed for the performer's area, and even the occasional Mickey Finn, a well-placed roofie or vitamin Q, does the trick. I'll say one thing for that punk. He's effective. Some unknown somebody, if you catch my drift, leaks the word that it was Uncle giving the orders, and suddenly nobody will work with the Kings. Doesn't help that Uncle steals their roadie's girlfriend, Light of Jah, a fellow tribehead, not one of the originals, but loyal as the day is long, is set up by the mouth for a backstage injury. Lands him in the hospital for weeks, just so Uncle can take a crack at Girl 7, cute little punkster attached to Light of Jah. Nobody thought that was cool, especially Uncle's side squeeze, long-suffering gal dubbed Giver. You get the picture. Uncle has rapidly become persona non grata, and they were just about to mount the most badass stage props, so Uncle and Sal have the talk. Solly, says Uncle, I'm fading here. Gotta bow out of the limelight for the sake of the band. But you can mount this popcorn stand. You are the obvious choice for the front man, right? Peace Bubba, a.k.a. Saul, a.k.a. Herb Catcher, ponders this one before proffering an answer. Uncle continues. And the few remaining musical outfits that challenge our supremacy, you can take care of them, but in a more subtle way than Yip. right? Saul clears his throat. Unc, says he, you have my utmost respect, and I owe you big time for bringing me on board this wild rumpus dance. Really, it's a gas. But you think the fellows would buy it? Me being an outsider and all? Solly bends down to pet his mutt, slicha, meaning beg your pardon in the mother tongue. Sweet little creature stuck with a practical joke of a name, no doubt inspired of an evening's toque. Uncle reassures Saul, says it's already a done deal. He's put out the word with the other players, who are more than happy to limit the liability incurred by their buddy, the Marxist bomb thrower. Everybody likes Saul, good-looking, reasonable, and massively intelligent dude that he is. Mr. Popularity, really, especially with the erotic tunes. But the pièce de résistance is he's got a line on a theatrical supply outfit in Lebanon, PA, apparently a tip from Uncle, that, get this, has the original Jachin and Boaz in storage. Business goes by the handle Hire-em, referring to the aforementioned antiquities. Their whole business rather specialized. Nobody's ever heard of the outfit before. Wonder how Uncle got the 411. Amazing how information circulates. Speaking of circulation, same outfit apparently has a whole lending museum of antiquities for them who can pay the price. Rumor has it they have a wooden column made from a giant tamarisk tree, unusual specimen, but the kicker is they say it's one of the places where Sis hid Ossie's body on one of his loop-de-loops. Maybe it's hype, dunno. I suspect some connection to the guys with the tasseled fez. It's a done deal. When Jachin and Boaz show up at the encampment, the air is electric. The band is determined to surpass both the judges as well as the tribe, once again to conquer the world, or at least New Jersey. That's the ticket. Every region in the country, region being loosely defined by the moneyed interests that, like as not, are completely obscured from the naive eyes of the musicians, is invited to choose a contestant band to represent them at Armageddon. The Kings are on a roll. Only problem is Saul has a weakness for the ponies and the ladies. Loses a bundle on both counts. Kind of pisses off their patron, so Saul goes out to pasture. Indeed, they depend on a steady stream of cash from sources beyond the largesse generated by artisanal pot sales, although the flyboys at McGuire Air Force Base are die-hard fans of both their Mary Jane and their music. But the bribes alone to the local zoning authorities tap those coffers out. The Kings of Zion is a chugging juggernaut just waiting to go off the rails. Week after week, it's one regime change after another. A slam dance between the Pine Barren boys and the freaky farmers. A regular do-si-do, swing your partner, toss him on the floor hoedown. No surprise that the whole ruckus leads to a parting of the ways. Most of the farmers staying with the South Jersey contingent, the Pineys mostly heading north. The Tokarians are split. Peace Bubba and associated buddies remain southerly in their disposition, whilst the Mouth leaves the Piney contingent northward to Saddle River to connect with some people he knows there, no doubt Bergen County wise guys willing to support his new frontman gig. Definite tail wagging the dog in the case of said punk. A sad day of disunity amongst tribe heads. The Kings of Saddle River is a short-lived phenomenon. The internecine squabbling would be comic if not so violent. The Mouth flames out early, not well liked, surprise, surprise. Seems like a new frontman pops up every time you turn around. One real troublemaker goes by the handle Singer. Pitiful little songbird, hair slicked up to look like Elvis's second coming. He is a particularly egregious stinker. He gets his predecessor drunk, takes compromising photos, and pretty much kills the guy's reputation. Then, when he's in the catbird seat for just 1 week, he ends up setting fire to his own house, for God's sake, apparently in a panic when a bunch of rowdy tribeheads show up at his door and he thinks it's the cops. Burns his whole stash of weed along with his house. Truly pathetic. This clears the way for a prolonged pissing contest between two dudes, Scarecrow and Grip, as in losing his, two heavily tatted and pierced punks. One day Scarecrow just disappears without a trace. A sick burn, as the kids say. That Grip sucker hangs on just long enough to be replaced by an even more wicked dude called Brother. I keep a closer eye on that one, as I have reason to believe ISIS has a hand in his ascendance. Once he even goes after the guys in the tasseled fez. Unbelievable. Ends up in the gutter. Really bad shape. Lies down with dogs. Bloody business, those northern boys. And boys they are. An excess of testosterone may be part of what does them in. A regular parade of bantam cocks. They get kicked out of town after town on account of their late-night crowing. After quite a few more flip-flops in personnel, the whole kit and caboodle comes crashing to an end when the Ninevites, remember the Lucchese boys hiding out just over the border in rural New York? Well, they get tired of all the sass thrown at them in exchange for their investment. The Lucchese mob is ahead of all the other outfits in terms of buying into legit businesses in Atlantic City. They see the handwriting on the wall long before the Goombas in Babylon and Philly. They pull the plug. Down the drain go the Northern Kings, henceforth the lost tribe heads. Hades and Solly and Unk and Wiggy turn out to be quite satisfied with receding into the role of songwriters extraordinaire, strictly in the background, very intimate. Many a late night they scratch out tunes whilst plowing through a monster takeout order of the fat man's fries and onion rings, a keg of stout on hand, and a case of Lafroig to wash it all down. The artisanal pot biz, in addition to covering their rent, serves as a constant source of inspiration and expiration. Jag shuttles technical advice between the scribblers and the ever-evolving band. Sheepy's tune, now called Solly's Song, becomes a staple along with his updated version of a classic Byrds number he calls The Assembler, a tip of the hat to Kenny Rogers. Oh yeah, they do a cover of the anomalous tune from the Gambler's previous incarnation as a druggie. Just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in. Perfect for their brand of country punk, with a little hint of ska, a wink to Moishi and the boys. Sandy and I listened to a demo of Solly's little ditties, definite keepers. The Mouth's guerrilla tactics, may he go with the boundless one, have significantly narrowed the field in South Jersey, so the Kings are pretty confident they have the region sewn up. A handful of freaky farmers have stepped into the breach to take the lead, and the rhythm, and the bass, and the percussion, and whatever else is called for. Even a few of the distaff persuasion show up to dilute out the testosterone a tad, maybe dodge the bullet that took down the Saddle River boys. The band pins its hopes on Hizzy and Izzy, a sweet, childless, middle-aged gay couple who own the experimental farm next door to Zed and JJ. Call it Fig U. Cute, eh? Corner the market on organic dried figs, light years ahead of their time. They bicker like old marrieds, but everyone knows their backstory. A whole lot of battle scars between the two of them from the homophobe wars in Babylon. Before they bought the farm, so to speak, in Tom's River, they were a pair of glorious Greenwich Village beatniks and, of course, eventually, tribe heads. Hizzy, his tribe head named Strength of Jah, was a poet-slash-singer in the village, quite a rep in the artsy-folksy crowd. He performed at Gertie's Folk City in the 60s, before the tribe even dreamed of the place. That's where he first hooked up with Izzy, tribe head moniker God Save You, a bit more bite than Hizzy. Played all manner of percussion, still does. But the real action was June 28, 1969, the Stonewall riots. The Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street in the Village was purchased in 1966 by a Genovese gumba called Fat Tony and three of his pals. They reopened it in 1967 as a gay bar due to the captive audience they expected. A private club, really, no liquor license, so it required a steady stream of what was dubbed gayola to NYPD's 6th Precinct, who were as like to raid the place from time to time anyway. When you're a homo, you learn not to expect a fair break, I can tell you from personal experience. The Stonewall Inn was an equal opportunity inebriatorium, scrambling the brain cells of queers, dykes, trannies, and drag queens alike, along with the occasional curious straight tourist who came to gawk. Turned out to be one of the mafia's more lucrative gigs in Manhattan. No running water, no liquor license, and no emergency rear exit. The place was a death trap no matter how you looked at it. We loved it. The savvier patrons knew not to give proper ID as the risk of blackmail was non-zero. The raids were a kind of pro forma ritual, many a wise guy tipped off in advance. The cops liked to bust the sissies because they didn't fight back, until they did. In the jolly month of June, 1969, Mayor John Lindsay's campaign strategy for re-election includes cranking up the heat on clubs patronized by queers and other minorities, his Ken doll good looks notwithstanding. On the one side, you had your beat poets like Hizzy and his pals, Al Ginsberg and Bill S. Burroughs, heavyweights on the beatnik team, plus the legal maneuverings of the Mattachine Society, based on the notion that two consenting adults ought to be able to do whatever they wanted with regards as to the placement of said adult's genitalia whilst in private. Nuff said. On the other side, you had the entire heft of Babylon's political machinery bent on entrapping and jailing fags, as we called ourselves out of protest. Christ, even the frickin' lawyers were giving kickbacks to the arresting officers, the weasels. It was 1:20 a.m. Saturday when Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine, I kid you not, that was his actual name, sounds like a gay peep show, hollers through the door, "Police! We're taking the place!" The management quickly flips off the black lights and cranks up the incandescents so as everybody could see a raid was in progress. It didn't go as planned by the cops. They heisted all the booze and kicked a few patrons out, but the paddy wagons did not arrive pronto, so a rather large crowd of gay-friendly folk begins to assemble on the street outside. The crowd starts to boo and chant as the men in blue rough up the drag queens. First it was pennies, then beer bottles, then the bystanders began to hurl themselves at the cops with a fury hitherto unseen at previous such gigs. It was beautiful. Even Dave Van Ronk, that perverted old Santa Claus, wanders over from another joint and steps into the fray. Garbage cans were set on fire. Somebody uprooted a frickin' parking meter and used it as a battering ram to break down the door the police had barricaded. Even the women's house of detention down the street starts making noise and throwing shit out the windows in support of the rioters, a real block party. Then the tactical boys arrive, form a phalanx to force the crowd down the street away from the humiliated cops trapped inside the joint. Of course, the crowd mounts the only sensible response, a frickin' chorus line singing Ta-ra-ra boom-de-ray. I swear I'm not making this up. By 2 a.m., the place is in flames and the crowd barricades the street with overturned cars and chases the cops around the block. By 4 a.m., the streets are cleared, 13 people got busted, a few are in the hospital, and 4 cops are the worse for wear. There was even a second night of rioting, the mandate of heaven or some such. I heard the Malabikes wanted in on the action, but the crowd had its own agenda. A proud Allen Ginsberg shows up to crow at that one. Took a few days for the mayhem to sort itself out. The community was divided. Was Stonewall good for the gays? Gay militants and liberation are on the rise. As the smoke clears, Hizzy and Izzy realize they just want to live in peace. That's when they hear about the refugee farming community of Toms River, New Jersey. A few years after they settle in, right after Moishi and the tribe went defunct, they receive a visit from their nephew JJ and his buddy Zed. Seems they are wandering tribe heads looking for a new home. In short order, JJ and Zed are bitten by the farming bug and never look back, the nidus of a regular tribe head commune. Turns out Hizzy and Izzy are very much into the music of the tribe. In fact, legend has it that Hizzy was in possession of a rare tome, the Book of Changes, a fake book, a lead sheet for every tribe tune that ever existed, even some transcriptions of bootleg concerts. Some say it was assembled by Moishi himself, others say it was Metatron, or even the mysterious Adam Cadman. We won't get into that. But listen to this. Hizzy decides the best thing to do is to deep six the book. You heard me right. Yep. Thought people were getting a little too stuck on the old tunes, a form of idolatry, really. Needed to tap into their own spirit for the genuine 411. So he hides it. Nobody knows where, on the farm, a locker in the Port Authority bus terminal, a safety deposit box. Who knows? The Kings are pretty pissed off by Hizzy's sleight of hand, but JJ understands. That's why he and Holdy, the black-eyed beauty who came to stay, come up with their own book, the Book of Words. Claim they found it buried under the floorboards. Right away it catches on, has that old-time feel, but a new vibe layered over it. Some people call it Second Book. So Josie Ya, a.k.a. JJ, and Holdy take the lead together. The new and improved Kings of Zion coalesces around JJ as lead vocals and bass, both electric and stand-up by now, Holdy on the harmonium and co-lead vocals, Zed on rhythmic guitar and harmony, Zed's wife, Jemmy Ya, a baleful dove of a woman on fiddle, Hizzy on theremin of all the spacey axes, and an occasional recitation just him and Izzy as of old, and Izzy on beatbox and other assorted percussion. Izzy's ironic sense of humor is appreciated at rehearsals. He's known for staring his inscrutable Fu Manchu stare, droopy mustache and all, right at the last person who uttered a complaint, reach into his pocket and proffer one of his choice fruits whilst deadpanning, "Like I give a fig?" grimace, and walk back to his place. The sorehead would invariably eat the proffered fruit, smile at its otherworldly taste, and resume creation. Gotta say, the band haunts you, eerily beautiful with moments of mischief sprinkled here and there. Makes me and Sandy smile. There's some hope for this crew. Their anonymous patron ought to be pleased. Mysterious dude no one ever sees his face, does his business strictly through intermediaries. Hizzy sometimes wheedles the band into letting some of his fellow theremin players warm up for the Kings, call themselves the Seers. Bit of a downer, really. Pile on the doom and gloom pretty thick. But Hizzy's got a lot of cred with the band, so they humor him from time to time. They could do without the nabobs of negativism, as competition from the four corners of the map is rolling into view and looks to be pretty fierce. When the big day arrives, there are some truly awesome bands, that's what the kids say, queuing up for the Atlantic City Jamboree. Not exactly my kind of music for the most part, but clearly the hoi polloi has weighed in, given several of them the ultimate vote of confidence, money at the box office. A surprising array of kindred spirits arrives from around the country. The hottest contenders include a Phoenix outfit that was one of the originators of cowpunk, formerly a hardcore band that decided to piss off their fans by laying back. The Meat Puppets are premiering their psycho-spiritual masterpiece, Plateau, funded, unbeknownst to the nice puppets, by the Chaldean Mafia, a bunch of Assyrian Catholics gone astray, renowned for bank robbery, interstate commerce and stolen merchandise, murder, drug trafficking, street violence, and mail and wire fraud. Maybe they liked the bit in the song about holy ghosts and talk show hosts. Don't know. Good thing Kurt Kirkwood is completely in the dark about their patrons. It would curl his millionaire granddaddy's hair, him being the tip-top hair curler mogul and all. The L.A. mob is on its back legs due to having devolved in a free-for-all circular firing squad. Peter Milano, a Western Goomba with ties back to Babylon, retakes the helm of the city's $1,000,000-a-week bookmaking action, collecting fealty from nearly every bookie in L.A., but it's not going to last. In any event, a wise guy with a side interest in the music biz throws up dark money behind a local ska/punk/funk/reggae/metal/soul band called Fishbone. Like their song says, they just want to know, do dollars wash your sins away, unquote. That tune, Servitude, is in hot contention for the crowd's favorite in the AC SmackDown. Can you believe it? They also have a theremin player, along with their decidedly hardcore sound. A little closer to home, the Philly Pharaohs are backing a sweet little reggae group calls itself the Hooters. Some unknown somebody manages to plant his choice for lead singer in the AC competition, even names him after his favorite sweet, Necco Deuce, snack food of champions. Amazingly, the mullet heads go along with it. Bunch of U of P flunkies boosted by a little payola to the local FM radio outfit, Cool Cash for Cool Tunes, or so the rumors have it. Big school spirit contest. High school knuckleheads sending in postcards, over 26 million of them. When the fraud story hits, there are riots and lawsuits, all par for the course with Philly fans. No winner, no concert. Maybe why the Hooters are willing to take on the added freight of a bought and paid for singer. Enoch's Falcon logo. Remember that obscure little candy factory in the Devil's Corner neighborhood? Its insignia adorns all their swag. They draw the line at changing their name to the Pharaohs. The Hooters cover some of the same narrative turf as the Kings. In particular, the number they prep for AC, All You Zombies, positively biblical. Moses and Noah meet the living dead. The real threat, however, is from the Beasties, hottest outfit in Babylon. They bring on the punk. Smart dudes, even a dudette in their original configuration, but a wave of testosterone washes her to a different shore. The Beastie Boys are headed for the top. They practically own CBGB. But for the AC Jam, they reach way back, totally old school, with a number called Shadrach. Tune goes back to Louis Armstrong's gigs in the 1930s. Can you believe that? Song was covered by Louis Prima, Benny Goodman, Sonny Rollins. Amazing. But the boys of Babylon surely know Shadrach, digging deep to Sly and the Family Stone, their backup vocals for the chorus to Loose Booty. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those dudes are on fire. Fistfuls of dollar on that one. Who knows who in Babylon is backing them? Finally, the heroes from the Hub, Boston's finest, the mighty, mighty Bosstones, plan to bring their original brand of hyperkinetic ska punk to the arena. Rumor has it that they're backed by Booty from the Winter Hill Gang, Whitey Bulger's whole sick crew, best known for fixing horse races and arming the IRA. Of course, the Bosstones are completely in the dark about their funding, as are all the other bands in their run-up to Armageddon. No sense in forfeiting plausible deniability. There's a brief interval where the Celtic gangs of Boston eclipse the all-powerful gangs of Babylon. But just like in L.A., the worst of them inevitably gets flipped by the federales. At their height, however, they could definitely spare some loose change to underwrite a bunch of local Celtic lads and their pals. Tim Johnny Vegas Burton, so-called on account of his penchant for old cars, golf, and the ponies, writes an old-school ska tune, When God Was Great, just for the occasion. But it doesn't see the light of day for nearly 4 decades on account of the Celts never making it as far as Atlantic City. Some say they made an Irish pilgrimage, at sea on a rudderless craft drifting whichever way the current took them. And I quote, When God was great, we just couldn't wait. To get as far away from there, we didn't hesitate. In the back room of a sleazy cat house called the Golden Calf, complete with a street sign featuring the yellow neon outline of a girl's lower leg doing the can-can whilst protruding from blue neon bloomers, backroom negotiations are underway between the Pharaohs of Philly and the Assyrians of Phoenix, in the hopes of staving off the rising power of the Beasties of Babylon. But nobody clues in the Kings. So between sets, as Josie Ya, a.k.a. JJ, wanders backstage whilst the King's roadies are setting up their act, he catches Neko Deuce in the act of messing with the Beasties' amps, just after the Meat Puppets finish their set. For some reason, he is consumed by a sense of righteous outrage. Could have been a bad batch of weed. Actually, nobody's really sure why he sticks his neck out on this particular occasion. Least of all, Neko Deuce, who has every reason to believe he'll get a pass on this gambit. Neko doesn't even know the sabotage idea was hatched by one of the Chaldeans footing the bill whilst wrangling under the sign of the flippin' Golden Calf. Ideas have this funny way of percolating just under the radar until they hit their target. Matrix stealth technology. Besides, everybody knows the Kings did a bunch of the same shit all along their rise to the top of the Jersey ska punk scene. Punks will be punks. But no, JJ goes all Elliot Ness on Neko Deuce. He demands, Hey, what are you doing there? You can't expect me to watch you sabotage the Beasties' equipment and say nothing? Neko Deuce is nonplussed. Do I have a beef with you? What are you interfering for? These guys are going to make monkeys out of all of us with their Babylon punk-ass shit. Just step back and nobody gets hurt. It's hard to take a guy seriously that's wearing a t-shirt plastered with the wonderful world of Necco wafer flavors, but dude was indeed quite serious. JJ, for his part, does not have a strategy readily at hand that does not involve standing his ground. If only Holdy were there, much more practical. Seems JJ suffers from a deficit in the capacity for subordination. Would have come in handy at a time like this. Enter the mouth. Yip had returned to Philly on bended knee after he got the boot from the Saddle River boys. Little Nicky decides to let the prodigal son live, but no fatted calf for this boy chick. The Pharaoh of Philly, in an unexpected burst of generosity, assigns the mouth to cover the Hooters, shake them down in exchange for an offer of security. and whatever else they may need in the way of assistive pharmaceuticals. A rare gesture of compassion indeed on the part of Padre Nicodemo. Wonder where he got that idea. Maybe getting old or soft. Seems he developed a penchant for Necco wafers, funnily enough. In any event, the mouth aka opener aka Yip is riding shotgun for the Hooters when the confrontation between Josie Ya and Necco Deuce breaks out. He emerges from the backstage shadows as the two mugs face off and says with authority, "We got a problem here?" Then he addresses his old bandmate, Josie Ya. "JJ, as I live and breathe. I forgot you was one of the kings. Heard about that second book of yours. Nice little bit of forgery." He taunts. JJ bristles. "So what are you now? Errand boy to the Pharaoh of Philadelphia? You like working with a gun to your head?" Yip knows he's been made, but doesn't miss a beat as he flashes the inside pocket of his leather jacket and pats the handle of his .357. "Not to my head, JJ, just in my hand." Meanwhile, in the audience, Sandy and I are seated towards the rear of the capacious auditorium, Nookie's old dance hall, slated to be replaced by a new convention center, but still a more than adequate concert venue. No ringside seats for us this time, much more hands-off, or so it would appear. Place is packed to the gills, every one of its 14,770 seats filled. You got your Phoenix fans, you can ID them by their eye-popping colors and oversized blazers, velvet or polyester, of course. Then you got your LA power crowd. Some of the chicks go for the Jennifer Beal Flashdance look, but a whole lot more folk are in Victorian mourning regalia or full-on Bram Stoker. The brotherly lovers are decked out in heavy eyeliner, clunky earrings, and American flag vests, very patriotic bunch. The Babylonians tend more towards your oversized baseball caps and undersized shorts, big bling, and a surprising array of labels, many obtained by dubious means, and of course the ubiquitous parachute pants. There's even a Hawaiian punk contingent, no doubt following the rumors of a band that combines slack guitar, ska, and punk, called slack punk. As one would expect, they mostly sport loud, flowery shirts with safety pins through their noses. There's even a gaggle of Ocean Grovers, that camp meeting city by the sea, attracted by word of tunes based on biblical themes. The dudes all look like penguins, white shirts and black pants, gals in gingham frocks. Definitely your mixed multitude. We could see that Josie Ya must be hung up somewhere, 'cause all the other kings are on set ready to rock and roll, just waiting for them to power up Jockin and Boaz and blow the crowd away. Unbeknownst to us at the time, Yip has already made quick work of the guy wires holding up the columns of fire and smoke, got the tasseled fez guys tied up in a back room. The Kings must have decided to commence without JJ, as it's lights up and holding on the mic for Sally's song. Zed steps in on JJ's stand-up bass and lays down some truly savory introductory licks. Izzy layers on a tasty beatbox scuffle, then Jemmy Ya and Hizzy shadow each other on fiddle and theremin. Holdy lets loose her syrupy contralto. "Give me your mouth. You can keep your wine. I dig your funk, like all the girls do. Give me your hand. I want to make love. Don't mind that I'm dark. It's no copper tone tan." And so on for a full 7 minutes, every dude in the audience mesmerized. She manages the guy parts of the duet without the aid of Josie Ya. Very impressive improv. But at the end, we can see them all looking around nervously for JJ. The backstage scene devolves into a shoving match between Necco Deuce and JJ, with the ritually required exchanges of "fuck you" and "fuck you, asshole," whilst the mouth smirks at them both. Says he, "First guy through that curtain wins the big prize." Necco tags out, just as opener aka the mouth aka Yip/Ippolito takes a running leap and plants both feet on Josie Ya's chest, sending him reeling through the curtains and right smack into the towering flames of Jockin. There is a wobble, a groan, then a loud ripping sound as the 35-foot column crashes through the catwalks and cables overhead on its way to the ground. Josie and Zed and Yip catch the worst of it as they are closest, but Holdy manages to clear out the front rows by screaming into the mic, "Get the fuck out of the front rows now!" Prophetic. Zed's last word, and I quote, Shit! Spoiler alert, the beasties of Babylon take all. The Chaldeans and the L.A. mob, and the Celts for good measure, all fold in the face of the federales, and the pharaohs of Philly are much diminished. But when the giant column hits, it's curtains down and lights out, a bunch of rags and sparking wires in a dangerous pile on the floor. Through a kind of Rube Goldberg effect, something jams the pipe organ key, world's largest musical instrument, and sounds the grand ophicleide monster tuba of the apocalypse. It emits, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, quote, a pure trumpet note of ear-splitting volume 6 times louder than the loudest train whistle, unquote. The frickin' last trump. Some long shadows hang over this mess. Maybe Sisanasi, maybe old Seth the Destroyer, maybe Naki, maybe even Iron Soph herself. We'll never know. Jockin's brass cladding cracks and a mummified cadaver rolls into view just as the sparkling blue haze whooshes out of the hollow core. An ancient voice, a voice I recognize. Of course, it's Boss Joey, the dreamer himself. Atlantic City, oceanic gem of the eastern seaboard, I hear your siren fade. Oh, baby, don't you moan for me. One brace of pharaohs drowns as another rises. I thought it would be 500 years, but you kind people resurrect me. The anesthesia of embalming has finally worn off, just in time for me to pack my bags, be they bags of ether or stardust or whatever immaterial is at hand, and split this popcorn stand, this storied parcel of sand, my promised land. I have been hidden in a pillar of fire, lo these many years, but now my sacred enemy has unbound me, seed of the mighty cedar and giant redwood, released to spawn in soil turned by fire's probing fingers. Fire, friend of the late bloomer, those who cling to their seed and do not let go. Too soon unleashed, the tenuous blood merely boils, desiccates, or sublimates, never to bestow its life-giving potency upon a new generation, a new specification, a new particular, a new wave. Pilgrims to the sea come and go by the millions, drawn to your decaying promise, year after decadent year, to consume your salt-soaked dainties and vacuous sweets. Your Quakers and world-shakers and clandestine drink-takers crowd the hollow halls of palaces, so many epiphanists in search of illumination, mundane or divine. Bring on the photonic phantasms, your diaphanous bandolier, light bullets at the ready, all aimed at the bullseye, so hard to hit with a darting glance. She who shines in the spotlight, opposite the dark one, the empty one, who admits all light.